Hello, hello, bonjour, comment ça va? Oui, ça va bien, je suis contente de vous voir. Bon, alors, we're ready? Yes, okay, good. Well, today is the last day of the Summit of the Americas. It's great to have you here. It was an important summit, a summit where we spoke about really stressing issues, including climate change, the importance of fighting COVID, and obviously dealing with the impacts of the war in Ukraine, which is having a difficult impact on food prices and also on gas prices. Today also was the first time the Secretary of State of the United States, the Foreign Minister from Mexico, and myself were meeting the three together. And that has never happened before, this new forum of the three foreign ministers. And we are preparing the North American Leaders Summit, which will happen later in the fall. The idea of this meeting was really to make sure that we were coordinating well as our hemisphere is facing many crises at the same time. Like I mentioned earlier, COVID, climate change, but also the question of affordability. Now, we also talked about regional stability. How do we deal with some of the democratic backsliding that we're seeing within the hemisphere? But also we talked about the shining points of our hemisphere and how we can make sure that we continue to support many countries that are doing great things when it comes to supporting their own democracies. So that's what we spoke about. Maintenant, je vais parler en français, puis après, je vais répondre à vos questions. Donc, bien entendu, aujourd'hui, c'est la dernière journée d'un sommet très important, sommet qui nous permettait de nous réunir tous les pays du continent pour parler de trois grandes crises qui nous assènent présentement, que ce soit celle de la COVID, celle des changements climatiques ou encore celle de l'abordabilité, parce qu'on sait qu'à cause de la guerre en Ukraine, il y a une augmentation du prix de l'essence et prix de la nourriture. Alors certainement, nous avons particulièrement une réunion très importante, c'est-à-dire la réunion entre le secrétaire d'État Blinken des États-Unis, le ministre des Affaires étrangères du Mexique, Marcelo Ebrard et moi-même. C'était la première fois que nous avions une réunion de la sorte, non seulement nous-mêmes, mais de façon générale, les ministres des Affaires étrangères de ces trois pays. L'objectif est de renforcer notre coopération. L'objectif aussi est de trouver des façons de gérer ces crises et en plus de pouvoir être en mesure d'assurer une grande unité au sein de notre hémisphère parce qu'on le sait, il y a quand même des enjeux au niveau de la démocratie dans certains pays, alors que au même moment, il y a quand même des pays qui font des avancées au niveau démocratique et ça aussi, on doit le célébrer. Alors, c'était l'objectif de notre rencontre et je suis prête à répondre à vos questions.
Madame Joly, vous avez dit cette semaine à quel point la crise des réfugiés est importante ici. Vous avez donné l'exemple de l'Ukraine, 5 millions, même chiffre pour ce qui est des réfugiés comme qui partent du Venezuela. Dans la déclaration de Los Angeles, le Canada s'engage à réinstaller 4 000 personnes d'ici 2028 venant des Amériques. 4 000 comparativement à 5 millions. Pourquoi un si petit chiffre?
Bien, c'est sûr qu'on voulait faire notre part, mais en fait, de façon générale aussi, à chaque année, on le sait qu'on accueille des réfugiés. On accueille des réfugiés qui proviennent d'un peu partout à travers l'Amérique latine et des Caraïbes, et on va continuer à le faire. En même temps, on veut s'assurer aussi avec les États-Unis qu'on négocie l'entente sur les tiers pays sûrs. Pour nous, c'est très important parce qu'on doit s'assurer que lorsqu'on gère nos flots migratoires, qu'on le fait de façon ordonnée.
Est-ce qu'on s'attend à quelque chose bientôt là-dessus sur les tiers pays sûrs, bientôt avec un genre de temps, une échelle de temps plus précise?
C'est certainement un sujet qui a été discuté entre le président Biden et le premier ministre. C'est quelque chose sur lequel j'ai eu... c'est une conversation aussi que j'ai eue avec le secrétaire d'État Blinken à plusieurs reprises et notre objectif est de faire en sorte d'aller le plus rapidement possible. Yes, of course. So obviously we wanted to do our part. We know that migration is certainly an issue, and we know that there are many root causes of linked to that migration that we need to address. Meanwhile, what we are doing, we want to make sure that we negotiate a safe third country agreement. This is why President Biden and Prime Minister Trudeau have had discussions about it. We need to make sure that our migration flows are done in an orderly. Let's go back just a sec, okay? I'll just finish on that. Obviously, we want to make sure to negotiate a safe third country agreement. It is important that our migration flows are dealt with in an ordinary way. Thank you, Evan, with my accent. I really appreciate that. Okay, good. Thank you.
The fact that it's only 4,000 people, I mean, does that really strike you as a substantial commitment from Canada's perspective when the West is doing so much of the heavy lifting, when the numbers are so significant?
We know that migration is definitely an issue throughout the hemisphere, but we know also we are playing our part every year by taking 1% of our total population as new immigrants. That's what we do in Canada. We're proud of doing it. We'll continue to do it. At the same time, we want to do it in a way that respects our system, and that is why we're negotiating a safe third country agreement with the U.S. That is also why we will continue to engage on the question of refugees and addressing the root causes.
Last year about Haiti, we're going to accept immigrants from Haiti under the Canadian immigration point system, which favors people who are highly educated, speak official languages. That is a very small number of people. Are you not concerned that you're skimming the cream of Haitian society and causing a brain drain rather than helping the country by removing the most educated people and leaving them behind?
So we've been very engaged on the question of Haiti in general. This is certainly an issue that I'm leading in the context of the conversation between Mexico, United States, and Canada. That is why I held a ministerial meeting in January on this very issue, and we had a donors conference on February, because we know that the situation in Haiti is dire, and we need to do more. We will engage with Haiti to make sure that there is a democratic transition. I'm having a bilateral meeting with the foreign minister this afternoon. Things have been moving in the right direction, but quite frankly, too slowly. And so we need to give momentum. There needs to be elections that are held in Haiti. We need to bring back security first and also democracy to Haiti. Well, of course, we know that we've had great Asian representatives for now more than 40 years coming to Canada. And therefore, we have a very strong diaspora. And of course, we know that there are strong people-to-people ties between Canada and Haiti. And we know that there are already a lot of Asians that come to Canada for university degrees. So that's already something that is a reality. Now, we wanted to do more. We wanted to do more by participating to this important LA Declaration on Migration, but also we need to make sure that we find a diplomatic solution for Haiti. Because the island is not only in a dire situation, but it's been facing so many crises, from a earthquake to the impact of climate change to COVID. So that's why they really need our help, and we will be there to assist the very people of Haiti that needs Canada's support more than ever.
There are a lot of people who feel like summits like this don't really accomplish this much, that the only thing that tends to come out of them are countries saying they pledge to continue working together and having more conversation. What specific progress do you think Canada made over the last few days?
I think that one of the things that we're seeing within the hemisphere is the very big preoccupation regarding how countries are able to have access to funding and financing while at the same time dealing with a climate change crisis. crisis. And this is certainly something that the Caribbean countries are talking about, because right now what is available to them is certainly difficult to access. And so as a country that has so much people-to-people ties, particularly in the Caribbeans, and at the same time as a country that has brought so much of the climate change agenda to the forefront, we want to make sure that we're finding solutions to them. Because if we don't, well, there will be more issues with migration, there will be more difficult situations and political unrest, and this will be a cycle that a negative cycle that many of these countries will be going through. So what we want to do is to work at the international level to bring their preoccupation not only in the context of the Summit of the Americas, but also at the G7 next time. This is the role of Canada. We are an important diplomatic force. We hear and listen what other countries have to say, and we are there to provide solutions. And sometimes we're there to bridge the different realities between countries and what our American friends have in mind.
Last question. With Venezuela and Nicaragua and Cuba not here, and so many of the migrants coming from those countries, how concerned are you that the compact that you've come up with today and been a part of is not really going to work? I mean, they've had no input into what's going on and seemingly will not. You say you're acting as a bridge between the U.S. and all these different countries, not those three because they're not here.
No, I wouldn't say that. So a couple of things on that. Obviously, we have a long-standing relationship with Cuba. We'll continue to have that relationship, and meanwhile, we need to address the question of human rights with them. And we're always willing to have a conversation with the U.S. about this very issue, and with Mexico, obviously. The second thing is, on the question of Nicaragua, I think there's strong unity across the hemisphere that what is happening in Nicaragua is completely unacceptable. And I haven't heard any country saying that they didn't agree with that. Also, we're very concerned with Nicaragua with the fact that they're holding any form of opposition leader, any journalists, and many political prisoners. So we are there to put maximum pressure on the Ortega regime. The other thing on Venezuela, we are there to find solutions. Clearly, we need to do more because the situation needs to be addressed. And that is definitely something that I talked about with my colleague from Mexico and my colleague as well from the US, because we need to find a new path. And of course, we need to respect the Guaido government as well.
One question on a different topic. You talked about bringing women and children back who are detained in Syria. Your government is a feminist government. Women and men are equal. They have the same criminal responsibility that Canadian men. Why are women getting different treatment from men who went to join the Islamic State? I mean, why are women being put in the same category by a feminist government as children rather than men?
So we have a framework to deal with this. And not only do we have a framework, but at the same time we go by case. And the reality is that the Syrian camps don't treat men and women in the same way. So that's why we're taking into consideration how the camps are being organized and how women and children are much more affected in this situation. What we're seeing is that when individuals are facing really important health issues, that's where we step up. At the same time, we know that national security is paramount, and we have to do so abiding with our national security concerns.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Yes.